How do you invest in exchange traded funds, or ETFs in short? Well, hello there and welcome to today's video, whereby we are going to go through how you can invest in ETFs and getting to understand what ETFs are. If you are new to the channel, welcome. In this channel, we discuss all things financial literacy, that is saving, investing, making money, creating wealth, and so much more. As I've said, in today's video, we are going to go through how you can invest in ETFs from Kenya. Yes, I am talking about global ETFs, and this video has been long overdue. You have been requesting it, but finally, we are creating the video today. So stick around, because towards the end of the video, I will share ETFs that pay monthly dividends so that you can get paid on a monthly basis. If that sounds like something you're interested in, stick around. Also, I'll be using a platform that I personally use to invest in global stocks and ETFs. So stick around as I will demonstrate how to get started on that. All right? Okay. Side note, this is not a sponsored video. I wish it was, but it's not. I am simply sharing what I personally use so that you can consider it. Do you have to use it? No, but yeah, that's what I personally use, so you can consider it. Without further ado, let's get started. So we'll start by defining what ETFs are. As I have said, ETFs stands for exchange traded funds. And what does that mean? Exchange traded means that you can buy and sell the asset on the stock market. And fund simply means it is a group of assets. All right? So exchange traded fund, it is simply a basket of assets. This can be bonds, stocks, etc. It is simply a group of assets. An example of an exchange traded fund is the S&P 500 ETF, which mainly invests in 500 of the best companies in the US stock market. So instead of picking Apple or Microsoft or Tesla, you can simply invest in an ETF that will give you exposure to all of those stocks at once. Right? Okay. And down below, you will find the timestamps, so you can skip around to the section that you find most interesting. But if this is a whole new world to you, I would recommend sticking throughout the video so that you can learn a lot. Okay, so you want to invest in the biggest global companies like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft. Well, instead of just picking one stock, as I've said, you can simply invest in an ETF. For example, I'll give examples as we go along. But for example, if you want to invest in an ETF that contains Apple, Tesla, Amazon, etc., you can simply choose the SPDR S&P 500 ETF. Its ticker symbol is simply SPY, which holds Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and 497 more companies. So consider that. And one thing that I don't see most creators or people talk about is the difference between synthetic and non-synthetic ETFs. As we have said, ETFs are simply a basket full of stocks. So when we talk about synthetic and non-synthetic ETFs, what am I talking about? I'm simply talking about the difference in the underlying assets. For example, for synthetic ETFs, they do not hold the actual company, but non-synthetic or traditional or physical ETFs hold the actual company. I simply wanted to mention that so that whenever you want to invest in an ETF and you want an ETF that invests in the actual stock, you consider that. Is it a synthetic ETF? Is it not? All right, I simply wanted to mention that. You can find more information about synthetic and non-synthetic ETFs in the article in the first comment section below or in the description box below, but I simply wanted to mention it. Let's go to other types of ETFs in the global scene. The first type of ETF, we have equities ETF, which simply invests in companies that are listed on the stock market. I'm not sure whether I'll meet you, but before we go to the global scene, whereby I will give you examples of ETFs in each category, I wanted to mention that in Kenya, at the moment, we only have one ETF, and that is the Absa New Gold ETF, which you can find on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. But in the near future, we will have another ETF, that is the Equities ETF. This was just announced the other day that Absa is going to launch an equities ETF for the Kenyan stock market in the second quarter of 2025. So stick around for that, right? Okay. Now back to the global scene. Now, as I've said, there are various types of ETFs depending on what you want to invest in. As I've mentioned, the first type of ETF is the first category will be the type of ETF according to the assets. For example, as I've said, equities ETF, which simply invests in global stocks. For example, we have the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, which covers over 4,000 US ETFs. The second type of ETF is the bonds ETF, which mainly invest in government or corporate bonds. An example of an ETF in this category is the iShares US Treasury Bond ETF. So, number one, we have the equities ETF. An example of that is the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. Number two, we have the bond ETF. An example of that is the iShares US Treasury Bond ETF. The third type of ETF is commodities ETF, which mainly invests in gold, oil, and other types of commodities. An example of an ETF under this category is the SPDR Gold Shares ETF for those of us who are interested in investing in gold. Yes, instead of buying the actual gold, the physical gold, you can simply invest in an ETF that tracks the performance of gold, giving you the same exposure without actually owning the physical gold. All right. Okay. Number four, we have sector ETFs, which give you exposure to sectors. It's in the name. For example, if you want to invest in tech stocks, but you don't want to pick one stock, you can simply invest in the sector ETF. For example, we have the ARK Innovative ETF. Its ticker symbol is ARKK for high growth tech stocks. Number five, we have international ETFs. These are simply ETFs that will give you exposure to other stocks in other markets. For example, if you want to own or invest in stocks from China, Europe, etc., you can get ETFs that invest in these markets. For example, we have the Vanguard FTSE Emerging Markets ETF. Its ticker symbol is VWO. I'll share a list of other international ETFs according to various markets below. And that is it. So As I've said, the type of ETF can be according to the asset, as I have stated the examples. We have equities ETFs, commodity ETFs, bond ETFs, etc. We can also have the type of ETF according to whether it is synthetic or non-synthetic. Another way to categorize ETFs is in terms of the management. It can be passive or actively managed, and so much more. So much more will be in the article, so make sure you go through that article. So now that we know what ETFs are and the various types of ETFs, how can you invest in ETFs from Kenya? Well, you can do so. So as I was saying, you can invest in ETFs from Kenya, that is global ETFs, using various platforms, and I will demonstrate using one such platform. Let's go to my, yes. So as you can see on Okay, so as you can see on your screen, we are on a platform that is the HISA web version, the web version of HISA. We are on the US ETF side. So once you log into your account, you'll see a section of Kenyan stocks, US ETFs. Just tap on US ETFs, and on the new page you can see trending ETFs such as VOO, QQQ, SPY, Bitcoin ETFs. Yes, there are Bitcoin ETFs. So for those of us who would like to invest in crypto, but you don't want the ups and downs of investing in crypto, you can consider investing in a Bitcoin ETF, giving you the same exposure, which will track the performance of Bitcoin without actually owning Bitcoin. All right. So we have trending ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, and we have so many. I believe there were 24 that were launched in 2024 by the SEC. You can see them on your screen. We have index fund ETFs, which mainly track the performance of indices in the US stock market. We have SPY, QQQ again, VOO, and so many others. We also have dividend ETFs. This is a question that I get most of the time. Do ETFs pay dividends? Yes, and you can see examples of the dividend ETFs. We have BIG. We also have Charles Schwab, which I will use to demonstrate how you can you can invest in ETFs using the HISA web version. Let's wait as we, yes, as you can see on your screen, the Charles Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. The current price is 27.43, and you can see buy and sell on that side. You can also see the name, which stock market it is listed on, the New York Stock Exchange. So these ETFs, this ETF seeks to track as closely as possible before fees and expenses the total return of the Dow Jones US Dividend Index. So the fund invests at least 90% of its net assets in stocks that are included in this index. Okay, so to demonstrate, you can simply tap buy. Yes, at the market rate. Yes. Do we want one share? No. The minimum you can invest on this platform is 1 USD, and that's it. Once you are done, simply tap buy. And that is how you can invest in global ETFs from Kenya using this platform. Okay, all right. And that is it. Leave any questions that you have about investing in US ETFs below. Back to the types of ETFs on this platform. We have index ETFs, dividend ETFs, which are so many, FANG ETFs. You can also see that one. Oil ETFs, as we said, commodity ETFs. An example is oil ETFs, leveraged ETFs, and so much more. And yeah, that is it. That is simply how you can invest in US ETFs using this platform. Okay. So there are so many other platforms out there, but I personally use this one. And one of the reasons why I use it is because I can deposit through M-Pesa. Yes, I don't need a foreign account or, yeah, any card. I can simply invest using M-Pesa. So before you invest in ETFs, there are a number of things that you need to know about. So some of the things include the cost associated with investing in the ETF. And there are three things that we will mention in terms of the cost. As you have seen in the demonstration, in addition to the cost of that ETF, there is also a commission that you will be charged when you buy. The commission on that platform is 1%, the lowest I have seen so far. So, yeah. Another expense that you need to know about is the expense ratio. So, this is simply a small charge for you to have access to the ETF, depending on whether the ETF is actively or passively managed. So the expense ratio will be between 0.03% to 1%. So make sure uh, the expense ratio is low as possible. Another thing that you have to look out for is the currency exchange rate. Why? Because you're buying in USD. So factor in the exchange rate and also withdrawal costs. Yes, I know I've said that you can use M-Pesa to deposit, but also, as we've said, you're buying in USD, so the amount needs to be converted, yes, into USD. So consider that, as well as the market risks. As I've said, ETFs are traded on the stock market, meaning that you have the risk of the value of the ETF going up or down. So that's another risk that you have to consider. So there we have it, the costs and risks associated with investing in ETFs. As a new investor, the key is to diversify your investments and only invest in what you can afford to hold for the long term. As we always say on this channel, diversification is the key. So if you want to invest globally, ETFs are one of the best ways to get started. Why? Because they offer diversification. As I've said, an ETF is simply a basket of stocks. Instead of buying just one stock, you can buy 500 at once. This is by investing in S&P 500 ETFs, which I've given examples of. Okay, so comment down below which global ETF are you interested in. I'd like to read your comments down below. As we, as I've stated, there's a question that I get most of the time, and that is, do ETFs pay dividends? The simple answer is yes, but it is not all ETFs that pay dividends. This is why I'll be giving you ETFs that pay monthly dividends. So stick around for that. So the dividend-paying ETFs are simply called dividend-paying ETFs, and they usually pay on a monthly basis. Some usually pay on a monthly basis, others usually pay on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months, you'll get something. Others and biannually, that is every 6 months. So it depends on which ETF you are investing in, right? So I'll give you some examples of ETFs um, that have a long history of paying dividends. The first example is the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, that is VIG, which invests in companies with a long history of increasing dividends. Yes. The second type of dividend-paying ETF is the SPDR S&P 500 ETF. Its ticker symbol is SDY. Now, this ETF tracks dividend aristocrats. Yes, it's a tricky one. But simply, these are companies that have a history of paying dividends for the last 25 years. So if you want a stable ETF that invests in stable dividend aristocrats, you can consider SDY. The third and final ETF, dividend paying ETF on this list, before I give you the top paying dividend ETFs, is the Global X Super Dividend ETF. Its ticker symbol is SDIB. Now, this ETF focuses on high yield dividend stocks. Yes, this is a worldwide ETF. Okay, so some ETFs do pay dividends, but others reinvest the dividends in the actual ETF instead. So whenever you're doing your research, consider what kind of dividend reinvestment policy does that ETF have. Okay, so check whether the ETF pays dividends, dividends, or reinvest them. So without further ado, let's go to the top ETFs that pay monthly dividends and their annual dividend yield. Now, number one on this list is the JP Morgan Equity Premium Income ETF. Its ticker symbol is JP. Now, the JP Morgan ETF has an annual dividend of 10%. Now, this ETF invests in large cap US stocks and utilizes an options. Yeah, you can read more about it in the article below. So number one is JP with 10%. Number two is the Global X Super Dividend ETF, which has an annual dividend of around 11.02%. Number three, we have the Global X Super Dividend US ETF, ticker symbol DIV, which has an annual dividend of around 5.91%. Then we have number four, the Global X Super Income Preferred ETF, ticker symbol SPFF. The annual dividend yield is around 8.22%. And number five, the last one on this list, is the First Trust Multi-Asset Diversified Income Index Fund. Ticker symbol MDIB, and the annual dividend yield is around 6.92%. There we have it, the top 5 dividend paying ETFs that pay monthly on a monthly basis in the US stock market. Now remember that dividend yields are subject to change. Just because this has been the norm, it doesn't mean this is what you will find in the future. So before you invest in any ETF, do your own research first and consider the risks associated with investing in it. All right. Also remember, ETFs, dividend paid on ETFs, is subject to taxation. Yes, taxes are everywhere. Um, yeah, that's it for this week's video. Let me know whether this video was helpful, and what questions do you have about investing in ETFs from Kenya? I hope this video was very helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. In the meantime, make sure to watch any of these videos that YouTube recommends, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye now.